Welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. I am Jamie Plunkett here, as always, with Melissa Triebwasser. Melissa, we've got a lot to get to today, but first, I want to get to tell the people about how dumb I am. Okay.
Jamie, it's always nice when we can tell the people how dumb you are and not me opening my mouth and empirically proving how dumb I am.
Okay.
So this is a good thing for
This
me.
is a good dumb
I
that I
also
was
feel like
though.
I have to apologize for the way that I sound when we talk about my weekend. People will probably understand why I sound this way, but it
You went
is
on a
indeed
full bender, is what I
I,
understand.
something like that, and also nothing like that. But
Well, we're gonna get to Melissa's jam-packed weekend here in just a moment, but I have kind of self assigned myself the person who tracks like all of the stats and data for this podcast. And I have been tracking how many downloads happen every week, and we're
true.
growing, and it's really cool, both on the Republic of Football Network feed, on our own feeds, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I've just kind of had my spreadsheet. Melissa, you've seen it. I document every week how many downloads we get and all this other kind of stuff. And I realized this week that because I've been thinking in my head, like, all right, I look at the Spotify for podcasters stats, and that's like all of the downloads for the Frogs Insider feeds everywhere because it shows me like the audience breakdown, how many like percentage of different platforms that people are downloading on, all this kind of stuff. But the actual downloads apparently are only for Spotify.
Ah,
So I logged into Apple this week and saw the real Apple podcast numbers, and I just got to say I'm really blown away with how many people are listening to the show because it's way more than I thought it was, frankly.
I was pretty
Apple,
happy with the numbers that you were
I was
sharing me,
content. Look, I was very
and
happy with the numbers.
And then I saw the real numbers when you figured out what those were. And it is amazing to me that that many people want to listen to us,
Yes.
or maybe just
So
you. I don't
I
know.
think it's an us thing for sure.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that.
But either way, I say that to say thank you. If you've been listening
Yeah.
for a long time, we really do appreciate you. There are a lot more of you out there now that we have just learned about this week. So thank you to all of you as well for listening and tuning in. And if this is your first time listening, thank you as well for stopping by the show. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the follow button, and leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. We really do appreciate it, and thank you for growing this show as quickly as you have, because otherwise it would just be two people talking into a microphone.
Yeah.
So
Which sometimes it still is, but
that's true.
Jamie, I feel like this is a good segue to kind of tell the people we teased this a couple weeks ago, but it's actually going to happen this week. It looks like that the show that so many people are listening to is expanding.
We are growing.
Yeah, and that there's not going to be just one opportunity to listen to us ramble on a week,
It's
but
true.
two
You can
opportunities.
look if you were already breaking up our show into multiple segments for your short commute, you have now two opportunities a week to do that starting this week because we'll be first of all moving our normal recording days from Monday to Sunday. We're backing it up a day. This podcast will typically serve as like a recap of the previous week game, TCU game, breakdown, quotes, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, nothing to do quite in that vein this week yet. And then we'll have one later in the week that will preview TCU's upcoming opponent, talk a little bit more about what Sonny said at the press conference every week, that kind of stuff, and maybe do a little bit of a mailbag as well. So we got two episodes a week now that we've hit football season. Very excited about that. And we're growing the show, so very excited for all of you that have been listening. Very thankful for all of you, and excited to bring you guys an extra show every week during football season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we'll say that we're backing to show up, and then on weekends that I'm traveling, God only knows when we'll record, but it's gonna be fine because I will be in town for this weekend's opener, but I also get back really early on Sunday because I have game prep to get ready for my first flag football game on Tuesday, September 5th. So
So you had a scrimmage though already,
we did have a
right?
scrimmage. We
So
did. We had our first.
how'd that scrimmage go?
Listen, like there's still a lot to learn about this game and what this game is going to look like in the Sac King section in Northern California. But guys, I think I got a team.
Let's
I think I got a
go.
squad. I felt pretty good about what we did, all things considered, in this scrimmage. I wouldn't have been keeping score, except that we definitely won. So in which case I was keeping score. I was super impressed with my kids. I thought we looked pretty athletic. Our defense is salty. Like Gary
Nice.
Patterson would be proud.
Good.
And I think the offense will come around here by next week. So I'm pretty fired up. I've been watching the scores from around the league, and they're going to be some good. We're gonna have some strong opponents for sure, but I think we'll be a really competitive team, and if we can not turn it over, put points on the board, I think we can be a player. I think we can be a player in the SFL this year. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens when real football starts. But I like what I saw out of my kids, and we officially separated out of varsity and JV teams this week. That was tough, but I think I got a squad. I think I got some kids that can ball out. It's gonna be fun.
You sounded so much like a football coach
Right.
right there. We're going
Yeah.
to be a tough out. We got a really good competitive league, but we're going to give some people some problems. We got a talented team this year, yada, yada. Nice
Yeah,
one.
as the kids worked really hard in camp. I
Hmm.
feel like, we're going to be the best conditioned team out there. We won't fade in the fourth quarter. We're going to hit people in the mouth, except we're not because it's a non-contact sport. But there also are only two officials on the field, so what you don't see isn't a foul. Yeah, it's going to be I got this little sophomore running back who's just shifty as hell, and she's also one of my students. She's in my class, and she came in Wednesday after our scrimmage, and she was like, Trebe, because all the kids call me Trebe, Coach Trebe. She's like, look at this, and like shows me like all the bruises up and down her arm. She's like, someone told me this was a non-contact sport, and I was like, welcome to the show, kid. No such thing. No
Love
such
it.
thing. It was great. She was really proud of it though. So I was like, my kids are tough, man. They aren't scared.
I
You can hit
love
them in the
that.
mouth, they're gonna bounce back up.
And who knows? Maybe by the time they graduate from high school, go to college, there will be some sort of collegiate league they can play.
There already
Nice.
is in the NAIA. Yeah, the first ever flag football scholarships were handed out this past year in Illinois for a couple of NAIA schools. So it's already being played collegiately at that level. I would not be shocked whatsoever if it's a Division One, because it's such an easy sport for a big school to add and
Mm-hmm.
stay in Title IX compliance. It's very inexpensive. You already have the facility. Like you don't have to have a massive team. It's a really easy addition. It's kind of akin to like a beach volleyball or something where you don't have to invest $1 million to add a sport and get in Title IX compliance. You can spend minimally and give scholarships and kind of help your athletics program overall. Plus, it is among, if not it is currently the fastest growing sport in California, and I'm sure that it will be true as they add flag football in other states as well. So it's a cool thing to get to be a part of on the ground level. I've been kind of on a little media tour because it turns out that football coaches aren't so good at talking good sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my experience doing this, every time one station puts me on, somebody else calls me up and says, "Hey, will you do an interview with us for flag football?" And
Incredible.
also like the token female coach, right? Like I'm the token female coach at the all girls school, so I'm a unicorn in this world apparently right now. It's pretty fun.
You're Becky Harmon of flag football in
Mm-hmm.
Northern California. You love
Mm-hmm.
to see it. Well, maybe TCU will add flag football one day, and we can have a men's soccer team back again too. We just
So
double
sick.
up on some sports there. That'd be pretty dope.
Jeremiah, if you're listening, give me a call when you add it. I'm into coach.
Heck
Make it
yeah.
happen.
Oh my gosh, TCU flag football coach Melissa Treebwasser. That would be dope. Man, Frogs Insider would have the best source, I think,
Oh,
going for that.
biggest insider.
Right?
Biggest insider.
How about it? All the breaking TCU flag football news would be on this show for sure. But Melissa, as much fun as flag football is, real football is starting, and it's not just starting at the college football level; it's starting in the NFL here in a couple weeks too. And you had a chance to do something pretty cool over the weekend. This is the big bender that you went on. It's you got to go out to the 49ers Chargers preseason game, talk to a couple former Frogs on both sides of the football, I suppose. So why don't you tell us about that experience a little bit?
It was a really great experience. Shout out to Mark Cohen for putting me in touch with the right people over with the 49ers, and shout out to the 49ers for credentialing me for that game. I've got to give the press box spread at Levi Stadium was among the most elite spreads I've seen for any venue. Although I will say it was a little disappointing to walk into Levi Stadium and see so many men in jerseys and like no glitter, because the last time I was there obviously was for the Taylor Swift concert. So different crowds, total different vibe. A lot more drunk people. It was quite the experience. No, it was great. It was really cool to be in an NFL press box for an NFL game. Max Duggan got a ton of reps, which was really cool. Got to see him make some plays with his feet, and throw the ball around a little bit. And then didn't get a chance to talk to D Winters and Matt Pryor on the Niners side, because I was kind of my priority was going to talk to Quentin, Derius Davis, and Max over on the Chargers side. And so I booked it down to the locker room and That was an experience in and of itself that I'm not going to talk about. But got a chance to interview those three guys, talk to them about making the transition from the college game to the NFL, which I think they had some really good quotes on that I think hearing from Max and kind of, him talking about how learning how to be a professional was a really interesting kind of perspective that he gave. Let's hear from him now on that.
Yeah, it's fun. I think there's a learning curve, and guys are helping me, and it's fun to be here with great people that are helping me learn. And I think, at the point you just got to go out there and play. But I think there is a learning curve to get into it. But it's been fun out here.
Biggest thing that you've learned in your last 4 or 5 months from the transition from college ball to the pros?
I think just how to be a professional. I think learning from great guys that are in this building and in our room of how to be a professional, how to approach every day, to get better and how to treat people and how to be that professional at the highest level.
And then I did also ask all three guys, coming off of the season that they had, looking forward to this fall at TCU, who were they most excited to watch play? And I don't think it'll come as any surprise. We've talked about him a lot on this show, but Derius Davis and Quentin Johnston had a fellow receiver that they came in with that they had really high praise for. Let's hear what they had to say about Savion Williams.
Like Q said, Savion Williams, guy that came in with us, Chandler Morris, he got hurt last season, and I feel like he have a lot to prove. So Chandler Morris and Savion Williams.
And then, like any good quarterback would, Max Duggan was very quick to throw a little light on the offensive linemen, the guys that are coming back for another year. He talked about how much he's looking forward to seeing that unit gel and what they can do for Chandler Morris.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys, obviously, a bunch of buddies that are still on the team. Obviously, Andrew Coker and Brandon Coleman, John Lambs up front, lived with those guys. And so, very close to them. But there's plenty of guys that, I'm looking forward to. Obviously, looking forward to watching Chandler play and having a great year and just the rest of the guys just having a good year.
Yeah, overall, super, super cool experience. Love getting to catch up with those guys. It was fun to see them. It was fun to kind of see like the like little shock and then it register on their faces that like who I was. Cause I mean, obviously we spent a lot of time around those guys over the last month or so of the season, at the Fiesta Bowl National Championship, the Big 12 championship. And so it was really fun to get to reconnect with them and just to kind of see them having so much success. I think, Max is done a lot of really good things. And I think he's got a great shot to make that 53-man roster as the third quarterback there. And, I think Derius Davis is a guy that was going to be a return specialist, but I think he's really carved out a niche for himself as a receiver too, as a slot receiver. I think he's not only going to make that team, I think he's going to play. So, and then QJ, obviously first round pick, huge expectations on him. And he made a couple of really nice receptions in that game too. So really fired up for those guys, fired up for D Winters, who looks like he could be in the 2 deep for the 49ers, that really good defense. And Matt Pryor started, most of the preseason, played a ton of snaps. So I think he's on that squad. His position's locked in too. So really, really cool to see TCU guys have success at the next level. It's great for the program as a whole. And it's just fun to have guys to cheer for on Sundays too.
Yeah, it's really cool. Speaking of cheering for guys on Sundays, like Lucan Baker over on the baseball team had his first first major league home run this weekend as well. And that was pretty cool to see. And it just across all of the sports landscape now, I mean, Messiah Bright's one of the leading goal scorers in the NWSL this year as a rookie. Obviously, Desmond Bain and Kendrick Williams and soon to be Mike Miles in the NBA are absolutely crushing it. And it's a good time to be a Horned Frog, just to be able to bop around the country and see pro frogs pretty much everywhere you look. It's pretty awesome.
I completely missed that Lucan Baker home run because of how chaotic my weekend was because that was the 49ers game was just one in a series of just massive just chaos. But I'm looking at the highlights now on Twitter. What a vintage Lucan shot. I mean, just made it look so easy. And so smooth.
It looked almost identical to the home run he hit in the College World Series against Texas Tech. So I think it's important to bring that up for any Red Raider folks that might be listening.
As much as possible.
Shout out to Gambling Gauchos. I'm sure they remember that well and fondly. But Melissa, let's jump into I'm actually going to cut live here on the air the week 0 conversation because nothing really like terribly interesting happened outside of Notre Dame just absolutely throttling Navy.
Yeah.
In Ireland,
disrespecting the troops.
Disrespected the troops, but won me money. So that was pretty cool of them. But Melissa, we're going to get into a couple predictions here in just a second. But first, I want to remind our listeners of one of our incredible sponsors, Hell's Half Acre Sporting Goods. Hell's Half Acre Sporting Goods is a brand that was created with Horned Frogs in mind. Each item sold makes a direct impact on TCU student athletes. You can check out all of their TCU gear, from polos and shirts to headwear and home goods, on hellshalfacresg.com. Hell's Half Acre has all the goods you need to get ready for game day. And they just dropped a new football polo a couple weeks ago.
Very cool.
It looks awesome. And so make sure you go to their website and get one of those before they're gone, because it's going to be the perfect game day polo for this season. Again, that's hellshalfacresg.com. It's the place to go to grab your game day polo, hat, and more. So head over there today. Nailed it.
Boom.
All right, Melissa, let's get into some predictions, because we don't have any football to recap quite yet for TCU. I thought we could do a little bit of record prediction and then some more specific, like, statistical predictions on the season.
I like it.
So let's start with this.
Like a good plan.
Probably the lowest hanging fruit of all of these predictions. Leading passer as far as yards, touchdowns, all of the above are concerned. Who's going to be TCU's leading passer by the end of the season?
Well, if it's anybody but Chandler Morris, I think we have a big problem. So let's go ahead and give Chandler as the unquestioned QB1, that he stays healthy, that he plays, I'm going to say, a minimum of 11 games this year. I think he's got a chance to play all 12. But he's going to play all 11 games or all 12 games, lead TCU in every statistical passing category, both yards through the air and touchdowns. I think Chandler's going to be the guy, and he proves he can be the guy this fall.
Yeah, I agree. I think if something different happens, then we're probably, like you said, something bad has happened. So I agree. It's Morris. Like I said, that was the easy one. We got that one out of the way. Next, TCU's leading rusher as far as yards are concerned.
Yeah, this one is a little bit more interesting because, as you talked about last week, as we've seen a lot of people talk about coming out of fall camp, is Imani Bailey has really established himself as probably the lead back for this offense. Trey Sanders has been, he's had a governor on. They've kind of load managemented him throughout fall camp in the interest of keeping him healthy. But Sonny Dyke said he is 100% healthy. That being said, Imani Bailey is definitely the more explosive runner. And we saw him average over 8 yards a carry a season ago in very limited opportunities. That's obviously going to come down as he takes on a higher workload. But I still would not be surprised at all if he is the leading rusher for TCU this fall, and I expect him to be so.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you here. I wonder if we're going to disagree on the next one, because I do think Imani Bailey is going to get the bulk of the carries. Mm-hmm. We've seen in limited time what he can do from a rushing standpoint when he gets into space, but he's also a little bit smaller than Trey Sanders. So I'm going to go with Imani Bailey for yards. But moving on to this next category, leading rusher as far as touchdowns is concerned, I think I'm still going to stick with Trey Sanders.
Yeah.
And I think that there are going to be some goal line opportunities for him. And, like I said with Marcel Brooks on the last episode, meaningful touches or meaningful snaps doesn't necessarily mean a ton of touches or snaps. And I think Trey Sanders is still going to be in the football game at meaningful moments, especially in goal line situations. So I'm going to give Bailey the rushing yards edge, but I'm going to give Trey the rushing touchdowns edge.
Well, this is super uninteresting so far because I was thinking the exact same thing. I do think Trey Sanders in goal line situations and goal to goal, short yardage, and in the red zone. Now, the one thing I will say I don't know because I haven't gotten to be there as much is what his reputation is as a pass protector. And I do think that that's going to be an important part even in the red zone of Kendall Briles' offense. But he is bigger than Imani Bailey, which would lend me to believe that he's probably a little bit of a better pass protector too. So I think Trey Sanders does also have the most touchdowns of any running back in that room. Although I do think that's probably a statistic that's more up for debate. And I would not be surprised if any of those guys had the most touchdown score, but I'm going to lead Trey Sanders as well.
And I mean, another guy that we haven't really talked about a ton in preseason is Corey Wren, who's fully healthy, Florida State transfer. He's looked good in fall camp. I just don't know how they're going to split all of these touches in the backfield. And I think the pecking order right now as it stands is Bailey, Sanders, but on a workload management, and then Corey Wren behind him. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see, I guess, how the snaps break out between those three guys. Cam Cook will probably get a few touches here and there as well. Highly rated 4-star freshman that's coming into the program. But yeah, I don't see anything crazy happening as far as this backfield is concerned that we're not necessarily expecting going into the season.
I completely agree. Now that this one gets interesting from here, right? Because I think that you've got three categories for us when it comes to wide receivers, leading receptions, leading yards, and leading touchdowns. I think you could easily go three different guys for this. And we, between the two of us, could probably have 5 or 6 different guys. So who do you have leading the team in receptions?
So I think leading I've been waffling back and forth. I'll be completely honest with you, between JP Richardson and Jared Wiley. Because I think that at the end of the day, the way this offense works, you're going to see a lot more attention paid by Chandler to slot receivers and tight ends because of where the ball is going to be going on the field, how they're going to want to move the ball down the field. The easy tie in here is that Chandler and Richardson are roommates, and they've been working very closely with each other all off season. And I mean, this is a guy that had close to 50 receptions at Oklahoma State last year. So he's probably the most proven receiver that you have on this roster right now. And considering the fact that it's a new offense, and so everyone kind of started on the same playing field outside of Warren Thompson, who transferred in from Arkansas, where Kendall Briles was prior. I think that there's not necessarily that advantage that Savion Williams or some of these other guys would have, having been in the program for previous years. All that to say, I think it's going to end up being JP Richardson, who has the most receptions for TCU this year. I don't think he will be the team leader in either of the other categories, though.
Once again, I completely agree. I think he has the most receptions, but is not the leading yards or touchdown guy. But the comfort, the bailout ability, I think he's someone that Chandler will look for early and often in games. And I think that he'll be asked to run very completable routes and be kind of that underneath guy, as TCU, like we've talked about, is maybe a little bit less explosive, but a little bit more efficient this fall on the offensive side of the ball.
Fully agree. All right, moving to this next one, though. Who's going to lead the team in receiving yards this year?
Okay, this is where I feel like I have to go with a wild card because we've been in full agreement at this point. So
I was thinking about a wild card too, but give me yours.
Okay, this could be interesting then. I was kind of thinking it wouldn't surprise me if it was Savion, but I'm going to stick with the outside and go Dalen Wright. I think that his combination of size and speed, because Savion is a big target, is a great target. He's not the fastest guy in the field. He's not slow by any stretch. But if you're looking for those explosive plays, I could see Dalen Wright, who's still kind of working himself up the depth chart. By the time it's all said and done, I think he could be one of the key explosive members of this offense and be kind of the big play guy for TCU this fall.
I love that pick. That's not who my wild card was. Okay. So that's also really great for entertainment purposes. And I could definitely see it happening. He's got the like you said, all of the athleticism, the body control, the speed, the hands, to be a guy that is a legitimate deep threat on this roster. I am going to go, though, with another slot guy because I still think the slot receivers are going to be the focal point of this offense from a passing standpoint and tight ends. So I'm going to go with JoJo Earl. Because I think he's probably like he is primed to be like number 2 right behind JP. And if not him, Flash, right? Like Jalen Robinson is another dude who is fast as hell, but he's an outside receiver technically. So that in my mind, when I was thinking about wild cards, that's what separated JoJo from Flash, was the fact that JoJo's another slot guy. I think this could be a very fun Derius Davis, Tay Barber kind of setup between JPR and JoJo. And I think they're both going to see a lot of the football this year. And at the end of the day, JoJo ends up a little bit ahead as far as yardage is concerned.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what this looks like in a real game. And one of the benefits of getting to play a Power 5 opponent in your opener is you're not going to get the kind of vanilla FCS opponent playbook, like Kendall's going to have to bring it in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to get to see, I mean, hopefully not for very long, but I don't think we're going to see, easing in. I think that they're going to kind of open things up and have some fun and on Saturday. And so I'm excited to see how these guys look and how they kind of all fit together. Leading receiver touchdowns. I have a feeling we're going to go the same guy here.
I think we are, and it's not a wide receiver for me.
Nope.
It's Jared Wiley.
Yep.
It's Jared Wiley. He's 6'7", 260 pounds. If he's not your number 1 red zone target by the end of the year, something has gone horribly wrong, because he is a dude that is in this offense. I mean, to be very honest with you, he could be the leader in all 3 of these categories by the end of the year. Like, that would not surprise me. I think Jared Wiley is primed for a massive year, one of the best years we've seen from a TCU tight end in a long, long time. And I think that because of his size, his ability, and the way that this offense is going to shake out, he's going to be TCU's leading receiver from a touchdown standpoint.
I want to see a TCU tight end. This is all I've wanted for 25 years, is to see a TCU tight end be so effective on the offensive side of the ball that he vaults himself into being a top 3 pick, or top 3 round pick. And I think Jared Wiley is exactly what the NFL is looking for in tight ends. He put together some amazing games a season ago, but like you said, this is his chance to have that kind of breakout campaign and have a really special year that puts him as one of the elite tight ends in this draft. There's a lot of great guys across college football, but he is special with that combination of size and athleticism in his hands. And he just makes big plays. And so I completely agree. I think he is the leading touchdown receiver for TCU and could easily be, in the teens with touchdowns this fall.
Moving to the other side of the football now, there are not a ton of new faces in the secondary, but there is one at the linebacker position that I'm thinking for this next one. But who do you think is going to be TCU's leading tackler this year?
Well, it looks like we're on the same page again. And I think it's a combination of ability and the position that he plays. I mean, if you look at that star linebacker position that D Winters held down a season ago, there's so many opportunities to finish plays from that position. And so it would not surprise me if Jamoy Hodge, is kind of in this conversation, but man, everything we're hearing of Nnamdi Obiezar coming out of fall camp is he looks born to play this role. And at 6'3", he's got so much more size than TCU's had in the linebacker position the last couple of years. Plus, he's a heck of an athlete. I mean, obviously, he's got the speed to play safety. That's what he played a season ago. I would not be surprised if he had kind of a top 10 tackling season for TCU in the modern era.
All right. I love that. But to keep this entertaining and not just, yes, we agree all the time, I'm going to go with the guy who was the leading tackler last season, and that's Johnny Hodges. Hodges had 87 total tackles last year. That was 3 more than Mark Perry, who was second with 84, who had 2 more than Jamoy Hodge, who had 82, and then D Winters had 79. So the 3 starting linebackers were in there most of the time, and obviously they were near the top because of this defense. I think, once again, Johnny Hodges leads the team in tackles this year. He also had 9.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Like, he was all over the field last year.
Yeah.
But I think because of the way that D Winters was playing football, especially near the end of the season, and because of the way Jamoy Hodge was hitting people, Johnny kind of took a back seat as far as attention went. Now, there were those moments, right, where we talked a lot about his story of even getting to TCU. We talked about the recruitment and lack of recruitment out of high school and lack of interest out of the portal, and his dad logging on and sending emails to coaches to try and get him some more portal interest and all this other stuff. But here's the thing. Johnny Hodges is known now. People know who he is. They're going to expect him to come out and have big games. And I think he's the kind of guy that will rise to that expectation. He came in and immediately fell in love with the culture that Sonny Dykes and Kaz Kazadi were putting in place. This is a defense that absolutely 100% relies on him at his position to do his job and to do it well. And time again, we saw that last year. You've got more athletic guys on the field at linebacker. I don't think that's any surprise to anyone. But Johnny Hodges is Mr. Consistent. And I think we're going to get another season of very consistent linebacker play from him. And he ends up being the leading tackler.
I was tempted to go with Johnny. The only reason I didn't is if you look at like how this kid was literally being held together with like pipe cleaners and duct tape at the end of last season. I wonder if they'll rotate him out a little bit more this season when they can to try to keep him fresh for the end. There was no depth. There was nobody to come in behind him a season ago, but it looks like there's a solid 2, potentially 3 deep at each of those linebacker positions this fall. So that's the only reason why I wonder if maybe he gets to catch a little bit of a break early. And that kind of affects his overall numbers. But yeah, it's really hard to pick against Johnny Hodges, not just for his talent as a football player, but just how tough he plays and, how badly he does want to be on the field for every single snap. So I think that's a great prediction.
And you make a good point there too. I mean, it could not be a linebacker at all because of the depth that they've got. It might be Mark. I think MP is primed to have another really good year. He was the leading tackler, I think, until the Michigan game. So it could very well be Mark Perry again this year too.
Now, I will say this, despite the fact that Mark Perry does tend to play a little bit closer to the line, if he is the leading tackler for TCU, this defense probably has not developed at the rate that we hoped that it would. I would say that would be a little bit of a problem. But also, he doesn't really necessarily play like a traditional safety in this Joe Gillespie defense. So maybe that wouldn't be that bad of a thing. Jamie, who is going to be the leading sack getter for TCU this fall? And I'm going to challenge you on this because we've talked about this a little bit. How many sacks is TCU's leading sack getter going to have?
God. Okay.
This is a tough one.
It is. There are 2 names that stick out in my mind. I'm going to go with my gut on this one just because he had a really good fall. I'm very impressed with his build physically, and I think he's going to be he's most capable to do this. That's Paul Oyewale. I don't think he's going to have 14 sacks like someone in our Hot Takes podcast said the other day. But I wouldn't be shocked if this was a low sack total for TCU this year as far as like individual totals go, but they get their sacks from a bunch of different places. I think Oyewale probably ends up with like 6 or 7, and that's good enough to lead the team. But you have probably a handful of guys who are all in that 4, 5, 6 range. Because I think they're going to have to bring pressure from a lot of different areas. You're not going to rely on Marcus Steele or Dom Williams to get a ton of sacks. And when you don't have a tremendous amount of depth at edge, that means you're going to be sending some linebackers at times. You're going to be sending some safeties or corners at times. And so I think TCU gets decent sack numbers this year, but I don't think they come necessarily from one place.
I would not be shocked at all if someone in the secondary or a linebacker led TCU in sacks this fall. Like that would not shock me whatsoever. But because we've kind of already talked about the guys who'd be most likely to lead in that category, I'm going to stick on the defensive line. I'm going to go on the other edge and go with Caleb Fox. I think Paul Oyewale has a great opportunity. He's going to be a big impact player. I'm leaning Fox strictly because he's an older guy. He's a veteran. He's a senior. He's got some more experience. It might take Oyewale a little bit of time to kind of get up to speed. I think Caleb Fox can lead the team in sacks. I agree. I don't think it's going to be a big number. I'm going to go closer to 7 or 8 though, with his total sacks for the season. And I think it's one of those things where he has, in one of those early games, maybe he has 2 or 3 sacks to kind of pad his stats overall. But I completely agree. I think you're going to see maybe 5 or 6 guys that have at least 4 or 5 sacks this season. Would not surprise me whatsoever.
All right, though, this next one, I think there are probably 4 or 5 guys that you could reasonably say will be the leader for this category. Who's going to lead TCU in interceptions this season?
So I love this question because, like I said, literally any of the 5 guys in the secondary could be the answer. But I think people are really going to try to avoid giving too many opportunities to Josh Newton and to Avery Helm. So I'm going to go with my favorite player on the defensive side of the ball and say Bud Clark. I don't think TCU will have as many interceptions as they did a season ago, but I think Bud is going to be scooping up a lot of mistakes. And I think he's the thing with a player like Bud Clark, he's going to take big chances. So it's high risk, high reward. So he will get a lot of interceptions that way, but he will give up some big plays too. So I think Bud leads the team. I don't think it's a massive number of picks, but I think teams are not going to want to throw at Josh Newton and Avery Helm a whole heck of a lot this fall. So there'll be an opportunity for the safeties in the middle of the field to kind of wreak some havoc.
I love that pick. I am going with one of the guys you just named, though, and it's not Josh Newton because I
Mm.
don't think Josh is going to get targeted a ton. Here's a fun fact, though, about Avery Helm, who is my pick to lead the team in interceptions this year. He has not allowed a touchdown from his senior year of high school to now.
Wow. That's great. That is a great statistic.
He has not allowed a touchdown from his senior year of high school to now. I don't know if that trend keeps up, but I do know that when you look at TCU's secondary and you say, well, we don't want to throw at Josh Newton. Well, we don't want to throw at these safeties a whole lot. All right, we're going to go over here to this side of the field. We're going to try and create some opportunities over here. I know that Avery Helm will be up to the challenge and up to the task. And I think he ends up leading TCU in interceptions this year. And maybe quarterbacks start looking back Josh Newton's way by the end of the season and don't find much success there either. I really am very excited. I got to go on the 105.3 The Fan this afternoon, which is a sports station here in DFW, to talk a little bit about TCU. And they said, what position group are you most excited about this year? And I was like, secondary, hands down. Yeah. Hands down, this safety bunch and this group of corners are so old, so experienced, incredibly athletic and talented. They looked at me like I was crazy because I said, I would not be shocked if there was another Thorpe Award winner in this group, and that TCU was bringing home that award for the third time in 4 years. They also didn't know that that would have been 3 out of the last 4.
But always sleeping on us, man.
They're sleeping on TCU, man. Sleeping on TCU. So yeah, Avery Helm is my pick for interceptions leader for TCU this year.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. Like you said, this group is so deep and so talented and so fun to watch. And now they're just so big. Mm-hmm. Like that's the thing is they are. I was reading Jeremy's camp observations on Horned Frog Blitz earlier this weekend, and I think he said that all but like one guy is over 5'11" or 5'10", which is the first time we've been able to say that about a TCU secondary in a really, really long time. That's cool. It's a big group. It's a big group in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, it is. And, it's partially because of Joe Gillespie's style of defense, what he wants at corner and safety versus what previous iterations of TCU's defense wanted, where they could get away with having some of those smaller, faster guys who were willing to be physical, take some pass interference penalties along the way, and shut down receivers that way. This is a different style of defense, and it's showing just in the physical build of the guys that they're putting back there in the secondary.
All right. So the last question, this is our final opportunity before a game has been played to put on paper, on record, what is TCU's record going to be this fall, Jamie?
I've been going back and forth.
I feel like I should go first because I'm probably more of the hater here.
Go for it.
And we should finish on your positive
hate
note.
Hate away.
Yeah. So I've
6
been
and
saying,
6, just say it.
I'm not that much of a hater. But I think I'm not like, it's not that I'm down on this team at all. I think that back half of the schedule is brutal. I think that you don't replace 8 NFL caliber players without taking a step back. And I think that a lot of teams around TCU have improved. And so I've been kind of saying that it feels like 8 wins is about right. But with the way that the schedule plays out, we've talked a lot about the fact that TCU could win 6 of their first 7, potentially 7 games. And I don't see them going, 2-5 or 2-3 down the stretch or whatever it is. I think that they're going to go 9-3. I'm going to give 9-3. I think just outside of the top 3, probably finished 4th in the Big 12. Not they're in contention for playing in the Big 12 championship up until the last 2 weeks of the season. But I think 9 wins, and 9 wins is me feeling a little bit generous. I think that feels about right though for this team this fall based on the schedule and all of the pieces that TCU is having to replace.
This team will win 10 games in the regular season.
All right.
It will be 10 or more. My prediction is 10-2. This is a wide open Big 12 right now. Mm-hmm. There are some very good teams. There are a lot of talented programs. Texas, Kansas State kind of stand above the rest right now as far as talent goes. We know that Texas finds a way to fart and fall down multiple times every season. I think that happens again. I think that happens to TCU. if you had to put a gun to my head right now, I think TCU wins 10 games and they lose at Kansas State and they lose at Oklahoma. I think those are probably the two losses on the regular season slate. Is that good enough to get them into the Big 12 championship game? I don't know. I just don't know. It probably could be. It could be close. But you're probably looking at, if you've got two losses there, you're probably looking at best maybe third, fourth in the conference at that point. You got a great bowl matchup probably at that point too, and you're looking at the potential for an 11-2 season on the heels of a college football playoff appearance. And I think the sky is the limit after that for Sonny Dykes and this coaching staff and this team. I have not been this enthusiastic about a TCU football team in preseason in probably 8 or 9 years. Probably 2015 was the last time I was this hyped up for a TCU team, coming off of that 2014 season and looking at all the guys that they brought back. And that was a different situation too, right? Because they were bringing a ton of guys back.
Everybody.
But I just, having watched this team as closely as I have this spring and this fall, I feel very confident in TCU's talent level, very confident in the staff and the culture to hold things in place. And I think that in the long run, if you're going to lose in the national championship the way the TCU did, it's very easy to let that bad taste linger and fester. I have not seen any of that from this team. I've seen it be a motivating factor. I think it sent the coaches back to the drawing board to say, hey, if we get this opportunity again, what are we going to do differently so that we have more success the next time around? And so I think we're going to see a TCU football team that's motivated, that was humbled on a national stage and wants to get that perspective out of people's minds, and maybe set the record straight about what TCU football is consistently year over year, which is, since the year 2000, the 7th winningest program in college football.
I think one of the things I've really appreciated about this TCU team is a lot of times you'll hear players and coaches say, oh, that was last year, we've moved on, and not want to talk about it. Every single player and coach that I've had a chance to talk to has owned up to that score. They have not forgotten about it. They have not wiped it away. They are like almost ready to talk about it and to say, yeah, we're not going to forget how that felt. That's going to motivate us, because it's not, like Sonny Dykes has said, it's not just about, being a team that makes a Cinderella run. It's about knowing how to win those types of games and how to build a team that could win those types of games when you get to that ultimate peak, and knowing what it takes to be a champion over a program the caliber of a Georgia, and Alabama, any of these kind of blue blood programs that exist throughout the country. So you can tell they really did take it to heart. And, one thing we've heard from everybody is that this team physically does not look like any TCU team that has ever existed. Not just the returning guys, but the incoming freshmen too, is that this is the most physically talented team. And then you give them time with Kaz Kazadi, and now they look like they are much more ready to compete on a high level with the best in the country, in the biggest positions that determine kind of the outcome of games.
Yes, absolutely. It's year 2. There's no hey, culture building stuff. This is, these are the baseline none of the baseline expectations, foundational stuff has to be reinstalled this year.
Yeah.
And so I think they're ahead of the game already in that standpoint. And like you said, they're hungry. They're ready to rock. So give me 10-2 in the regular season for the Horned Frogs.
All right. You've got 10-2. I've got 9-3. You know what we both have, Jamie? Home field apparel shirts on.
Yes, we do.
Because I've got my old school frog. You've got the hell freezes over. With home field apparel, you're going to get some of the softest t-shirts and hoodies in the game, not just for TCU. I know you love to wear your Big Sky Conference hoodie, despite the fact that it's last I checked 212 degrees in
Roughly.
The state of Texas right now.
It actually rained today here.
It rained. No, did it evaporate the minute that it came out of the clouds?
Pretty much, yeah. It's still 99 degrees, but it rained.
Rain is rain. That is so exciting. Nice. Well, it's a good thing then that Home Field released just about the coolest bomber jacket that has ever been created. I could not buy that quickly enough when that came out this past week. Home Field Apparel is one of our sponsors here in the Frogs Insider podcast. And as such, we get opportunity to pass along a 15% discount for all first-time buyers That code is FROGSIN15. That'll get you 15% off your first purchase, 10% off any additional purchase. That's FROGSIN15, 15% off your first purchase at Home Field Apparel. Some of the best vintage throwback t-shirts, sweatshirts, joggers, all of the things. They just released, I'm very jealous of this. I saw this come out Sunday morning. They just released football boxes with exclusive merch. They released it for 8 schools. I hope that TCU will be one of those schools because, again, cannot wait to spend more money with Home Field Apparel. They care not about my financial well-being, but they do care that I am dressed well for football season, and I appreciate that about them.
You are helping their financial well-being, though, by
Yes.
buying that bomber jacket.
Yes.
And I will be purchasing the box if a TCU one
Yes.
comes out as well, because that stuff is exclusive to the box, right? Like they're not going to be selling that stuff
not
just
one-offs,
on their regular storefront. You can only get it if you buy one of those boxes. So
what is it going to take for Home Field Apparel to make some Trubies throwback shirts?
I think you just got to get them licensed, and they're going to knock that stuff out for you.
Got it. Make it happen.
Gosh, I'm going to spend so much money on Truby's stuff. I'll tell you that right now.
I tell you, as you should.
Absolutely. So, Melissa, let's shift away from football, though, here just as we kind of wrap things up, because obviously Saturday is a big day. It's the first football game of the season. Colorado and Dion are coming to town. Big noon kickoff will be there. It's going to be an excellent atmosphere at A.M.G. Carter Stadium. More than just TCU fans will be in the stadium, though. There will be recruits in the stands as well for both basketball and for baseball. So a big recruiting weekend. This is one of the prime recruiting seasons for hoops and for baseball. I don't think a lot of people maybe realize that a football game is a great recruiting ground, not just for football players, but for athletes of other sports as well. I know that Eric Bell brings soccer recruits out this time of year. Jason Williams brings volleyball out. Hector Gutierrez brings beach volleyball players out as well. Like other sports build their recruiting schedule around TCU football as well, because it is such an excellent atmosphere and an opportunity to show those student athletes, hey, you're obviously coming here to play your sport, but here are some opportunities to just be a student as well, like coming to a TCU football game, watching them kick the crap out of Colorado. So basketball's got 4 very highly rated recruits for the 2024 class coming in. 3 are rated in the top 100 in the 2024 class. 1 is kind of newer on the radar too. So I'm not going to start with him. I'm going to start with the 2 that have been on campus before. That's Micah Robinson and Nick Cody. These 2 guys are very good friends. They've taken a ton of their visits together unofficially. They were on campus over the summer together, taking an unofficial visit, seeing the campus, doing all the kind of stuff. And they're coming back together again. TCU is in their top 7 respectively for both of these guys. Let's see here. Micah Robinson is a small forward. He's like 6'6", very athletic guard. Nick Cody's a little taller. He's about 6'8". He's a power forward. Reminds me a lot of Emmanuel Miller. Cody is a kid whose recruiting has blown up a ton over the summer. He's the number 55 kid in the country right now for this class. He's the number 1 overall recruit in the state of Texas. And he just released a top 7, but everything I'm being told is that it's really down to 3 schools. It's down to Houston, Texas, and TCU for his services. I'm not sure how interested he is in leaving the state. But the kicker here is that TCU would take them both. And I think that in the back of their minds, they're looking for a place where both of them can play, right? You're probably going to hear a lot about Houston being Nick Cody's number 1 school down the road. I don't know how much truth there is to that. I know that he likes Houston a lot. I know that he also wants to maybe play with Micah Robinson, and TCU, I think, is offering the opportunity to do that for both of these guys. Robinson is a great recruit in his own right. He is from DFW. He's from Frisco, but he's been playing his high school ball in Virginia. He's the number 6 overall recruit in the state of Virginia. He's the number 97 overall player for the class of 2024. Another very athletic, talented kid. And they'll both be on campus this weekend for a visit. They're getting it on Thursday night, I believe, alongside a kid, Trent Perry, who is one of the best point guards, combo guards in this recruiting class. He's the number 9 combo guard in this recruiting class. He's the number 7 recruit from the state of California, number 61 overall recruit. Trent Perry has been on visits to Oregon. USC is big in the mix for him. He is canceling a visit to Notre Dame to come here.
Wow.
So This is a kid who's got some significant interest in TCU And obviously is kind of TCU's maybe higher up in the pecking order than I expected them to be at this point in the process for him. He's got over 20 offers, though. This is a kid that's highly sought after, essentially from coast to coast, right? And it's USC, it's Oregon, it's Illinois, it's Oklahoma. I just mentioned Notre Dame. He's got Virginia offer. He's got Vandy offer. Colorado's in the mix as well. And obviously he's holding that TCU offer too. So it's another big name that's going to be on campus this weekend that the Frogs are hoping to make a pretty good impact with on him. And then the last guy rounding it out is the number 160 player overall in the class. I'm going to try and say his name. I think I'm going to nail it. Dorian Onwuchekwa is making his way over from the Dallas side of the Metroplex. He's from Dallas, plays at Faith Family Academy over there in Oak Cliff. He's a 6'10 center, extremely athletic kid who is growing up a lot physically. And because of that, I think he's still kind of growing into his game. So we're going to see him jump, I think, in the rankings this fall as basketball gets underway. He already has some legit offers. I mean, Texas A&M, Xavier, Virginia Tech, Tennessee are all on him already. He's got the TCU offer in his hand as well. He's going to be on campus this weekend. He's rated as the number 30 center in the country for the class of 2024 and the number 9 overall player in the state of Texas. So 2 top 10 players from the state are going to make their way in this weekend, along with 2 other very highly regarded guys. So it could have the potential. Sorry, 3 top 10, because Michael Robinson's number 6 in the state. So literally like 30% of the Texas top 10 for the 2024 recruiting class will be on campus for TCU this weekend. That's a really cool signal of how impressive TCU basketball is to recruits right now and how high of a level TCU is recruiting at.
I mean, it's awesome to get those guys in, to get them for an atmosphere that, like you said, is sure to be pretty elite on Saturday morning with Big Noon Saturday, with, the fans back out for this team for the first time at home since November. I'm assuming that we're going to get the Fiesta Bowl banner unveiled, hopefully Saturday morning as well. The only downside is supposed to be 105, I think, Saturday.
It's going to be pretty hot. Kickoff's at 11. I think the expected temperature at time of kickoff is like 98.
Okay.
But by the end of the game, it'll probably be like 104, 105, something like that. So,
but that's fine for basketball because they play indoors. So, and most of these kids are from Texas. They get it. They know what's up.
Yeah. I mean,
they'll be watching the game from a suite, I'm sure. So
I'm sure they're going to be taken care of for this opportunity to come watch TCU football and experience campus. I know they're going to visit a practice and do some tailgating and all that kind of stuff as well. So obviously legal tailgate, like just hanging out around tailgates. Let's clarify that. Don't want to get yelled at. Anyways, they're going to have a great time on their OVs this weekend. Baseball's bringing in a bunch of guys too. I'll have more info on that content, or on those kids and their names and stuff later in this week. And I'm hoping to catch a couple of these kids and chat with them while they're on campus or just after. So look for all of that over at 24/7. And obviously we'll be talking about that on the Sunday episode of Frogs Insider next week as well.
Jamie, on that Sunday episode, we will finally get to recap a football game, which is something to be very excited about. Hopefully a big win for TCU, who sends Coach Prime back home to Colorado sad and wondering what exactly he got himself into, because this is not only the first game of the season, but this is a preview of a future conference rivalry, which I think will actually be pretty quickly a fun little rivalry because these two teams will have played each other twice in the 2 years leading up to Colorado joining the Big 12 in 2024. So I'm so ready to watch TCU play some football. All the excitement of fall camp, all of the questions, all of the predictions are fun and a blast, and we love the off season for that. But we much prefer to talk about what's actually happening on the football field for TCU, and we will have a chance to do that starting next week.
Very much looking forward to that. Very excited to see TCU back on the field and hit somebody that's not also wearing TCU pads and helmets. And I think we'll talk more about game predictions and all that stuff on the midweek episode, but I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty good day to be a Horned Frog on Saturday.
I completely agree. Thank you, as always, to our sponsors, Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods and Home Field Apparel. Could not do what we do without those two awesome companies. And again, thank you to all of you guys who are listening, streaming, interacting with us on social media. I think we'll be watching for maybe some mailbags, some questions coming out later this week for our midweek episode. And then I'll have an interview with what I'm affectionately calling the most interesting man in college football, because very few people have had the last year that this guy that covers Colorado football have had. So looking forward to bringing you guys more content. Appreciate you, as always, listening to Frogs Insider.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.